before you notice what's been lost. Now I drink memories part from another time, hungover on you, drunk on us.
Welcome to the Indie Tea Talk podcast. I'm Adam, and this is Kitty, your host for a journey into indie music across the north of England. Tune in as we explore unique melodies, chat with talented artists, and create a space where you can discover your favourite artists like never before. And also, if you're a new listener to Indie Tea Talk, please show your support by hitting that subscribe button. It really helps us, and it also helps all the wonderful guests that we have on our podcast. From growing up in the sticks and immersing himself in albums for months on end, to sharing the stage with Benjamin Francis Leftwich and seeing his work covered by Matt Healy, Josh's musical journey is one filled with rich stories and heartfelt lyrics. So, without further ado, let's dive into the mind behind the music and explore what makes Wounded Bear's sound so compelling. Please welcome Josh Finn.
Hello there. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bit of a journey over today.
Yeah. Up yesterday I came up. Yeah, it's been a train carrying a lot of stuff. I had a music thing yesterday, so I was bringing a lot of gear up for that, but we've made it.
I'm really glad that you could make it today. We've been really looking forward to it. We were just discussing yesterday how much we were looking forward to a nice Sunday morning listening to some live Wounded Bear tracks. So yeah, it's been brilliant so far.
Oh, thanks for having me. This place is amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I was excited to come up and have a look around. It's wonderful. I really love it.
Oh, great, brilliant. So you mentioned that you grew up singing in emo bands and reading a lot, and that's your early exposure to music. It was quite limited due to where you lived. How do you think being brought up in that sort of upbringing has kind of influenced your music and creativity today?
Oh, it's massively. I think when I was growing up, which says something about my age, but you know, you'd listen to everything on CDs, and because we lived in the middle of nowhere, my parents would only go to the city, you know, once every 2 months or so. You'd get an album for that 2 months. That was the album you had, and you just listen to that one album over and over and over again. And I think there is, you know, benefits and negatives to being able to access music so easily nowadays. But I don't look back and think, oh, if only I'd been able to get more music. I think there is something to be gained from just listening to one thing and really going in and sort of treasuring over those songs. I think it makes you think a lot more about a song and wanting it, you know, you feel like you should be spending more time on it. And I think, you know, I have strengths and weaknesses, but I think one of my strengths is if I need to, I can spend a while on a song and just tweak it and tweak it and tweak it as if someone's going to listen to it for 2 months on end, which probably isn't going to be the case. But that's kind of how music is to me. It's really hard to shake that once you've you know, done that in your youth.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, sorry, go on, Kate.
No, sorry. I think I've not thought about that, but you know, you get your kind of Spotify weekly discover. Even I find that quite overwhelming sometimes, where you're like, I can't like all these songs right now. Like I get probably the third song in and fall in love with one and listen to that one over and over again, rather than I never get all the way through the list because I can't fall in love with 23 songs at once.
That's so true. And I think there is something to be said for it is amazing. It is amazing that you can sort of get all access to this. But there's so much good stuff. Like there's so much amazing music being made in all genres, and you can access all genres. And I think we're seeing it in some of like the much younger artists coming up now, where they've got so many different genres in.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was growing up, it was a bit more like, you know, I found a punk record, like someone who's like given me like an Offspring album, or my cousins put it on a tape for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know any other punk bands. The internet isn't as big as it is now. It's like, I am just going to buy another Offspring record. And then eventually I hear, oh yeah, they were on tour with a band that was called this. And it's like, right, well, I'll buy that band's album. Whereas now you can sort of just access everything all at once.
Yeah.
And it does, you know, Spotify's algorithms are amazing. They are able to sort of see you like this, it understands that like this could mean you like this.
Yeah.
But it can very much be like if a song's getting saved by me, it might just be I'm in the right mood for that one song there, and that just makes that particular song on that day stand out. And then, you know, you dive in. I did see an interview. I'm trying to remember who it was with. I think it was with Pink Panthers, and she was saying how it had never even occurred to her that there would be that like track listing is a thing, that it matters where a song goes on a track listing. And she saw people criticizing her, and she was like, I've only ever listened to music like by single songs in playlists.
Yeah.
And I think the album is becoming a different thing now, which I don't think is bad or good. I think whatever, you know, music and art becomes is wonderful. But it was just very interesting to me because like, that's so different. That's such a different idea to when I was growing up, and it's like, I have this album is what I've got for like 2 months, you know?
Yeah.
I think it kind of breeds passive listening as well, though, because you're not, you don't know what's coming next. I mean, obviously, you know that's the same feeling when you first buy an album, but you kind of, for me at least, I put a playlist on because I'm doing something else.
That's very true.
I would never, or it's very rare that I'd put a playlist on to sit and listen to.
Yeah, whereas if you get an album, you might, and your new album, you might sit and listen to the whole. Yeah. I really like listening to new albums in the car because you can't get distracted by like your phone or the kitchen side could do with a bit of a wipe or, you know, like anything else. If I'm in the car, I'm like, I'm going to listen to the whole thing start to finish.
For me, it's vinyl that does that. So because it's a physical thing, I have to sit down and I have to listen to it.
And it takes effort. You've got to put it on the thing. You've got to take it out of the case. You've got to get it down. And suddenly it becomes like,
and it's tactile. You've got this thing with all the artwork and the sleeve notes and it just, it means something. Whereas like Spotify doesn't really mean that much to me because it's more of a passive. Like
I do think that, and I do sometimes wonder about sort of the effects it will have eventually. Like, is it going to be that, you know, because a lot of streams can come from playlisting. Do people now want to fit themselves more in a box with each song to be in that sort of playlisting? And is it better to maybe have something that's a little bit more backgroundy if it's just going to be a vibe?
Yeah.
I remember going to, I worked briefly for a company in London when I was still working hospitality, and I had a shift which was just serving coffee, but the venue was Abbey Road, and it just so happened that they were doing like a music industry conference about where the music industry is going. And there was a guy there who was basically discussing like how AI will change music and all of these things. And he was saying like what many people think will happen is in the future, essentially what will happen is AI will basically, you'll say your mood, and AI will know your mood, and AI will just choose the music for you and eventually just be making music on the spot, which is for that mood. Wow. And that was a really weird thing, a moment, because I was like, that's so alien to what music is for me. Like the most interesting part of music to me is that there's like human flaws in it and human bits here and all of these little creaks, you know, and cracks. Like that's what makes it interesting. Yeah. But it also made me think about my own music and made me sort of, I think in some ways, worry less about like, well, is this, that and the other? No, is my voice cracking here? Or is it this, that and the other? I suddenly thought, actually, no, I want it to be that. Yeah. Because eventually there'll be a time where things can be made so clean and it can just be produced. It's like, you can't compete with that. But what I can offer is, you know, me, essentially. Yeah. That's one thing that an AI or this, that and the other can't offer is that you've got yourself, and that's... Yeah. So it was a moment there. I remember being there, nearly spilling the coffee, thinking, hang on.
Keeps overflowing. Keep filling the never-ending cup up. Yeah.
So you said that you started playing guitar just to kind of have something to sing over. And I guess that lyrics are kind of the core of what you do and what makes you special. But how does your process of writing lyrics kind of typically begin, or where do you start?
Generally, and it can be different every time, I think generally when I'm writing lyrics, I sort of have a vague melody, and the melody will generally have a mood, and sometimes I know what I want to write about and it's straight in there, I'm just like inspired, and I sit down, and it's almost like throwing up. It's like words are coming out. I know 3 lines in, like what the 6th line's going to be, and I'm just typing.
Yeah.
I just like this spelling
like you can't
mistakes is
keep up
everything.
with-
With my head, and it's like when that's happening, that's my favorite feeling in the world. But it's not always that. Sometimes, you're chipping away, you're like a miner. And I think there is something, when I write, I generally have a melody, get the mood. And sometimes I know what I want to write about. Sometimes I'm just have the riff and I'm just singing anything over it until something feels right. There might be an image, there might be, it's basically throwing paint against the wall.
Right.
Which I think can be a bit rogue, maybe a bit more time consuming. But I find some of my weirder lyrics and some of the weirder ideas for songs, which I think is quite individual, can come from that sort of like very loose looping around. And then suddenly I go, oh, that line, but if that word has changed, that's actually quite an interesting way of looking at that thing. And then it's suddenly, that's a memory that I remember from that. And suddenly it all starts and then the flow happens. But it's, it can be different every time.
That's so funny because obviously we were speaking earlier on and you were on about like the arts stuff that you do at home and how your partner looks at you and says, maybe you should try doing it this way.
Maybe just do it a bit like that talks to me, like I'm about 6.
But it's that methodology that you're going through.
It's very true,
and it's obviously it's not just how you're painting; it's how your mind's creating these concepts because it's the sporadicness of how you're coming together. And
that's very true. I've never actually linked those things, and I've also got a memory when I was at 6th form and I was studying English, and when I wrote essays, I'd be crossing out all the time and then rewriting, crossing out, rewriting. And I remember handing one in once and saying to my sort of tutor, who was a great tutor, and I said to her, apologies, it's like a complete mess. And she was like, no, that's just how you work. Like if the words are good, it's good. That's just how you work. You see it and then you go no and you move it. And I think that's can be a bit more time consuming. And I do sometimes do writing with other people, which is a very different thing. With that, sometimes they've got an idea and you're coming in and you're honing around that idea. And I love doing that as well. But I just find it quite fun when you're in there and you're really, you're getting into the dirt of it. But it's different every time. There's a song that finishes this EP called Angela Part 2. And that was just a poem I wrote in like 20 minutes. It was just like, I could think of the next verse. It was just coming out. And it's like, that's just like breathing when it's like that. But they're not all like that. I wish they were.
Yeah. You've developed quite a distinctive like finger style guitar playing method, which you described as constant falling notes like rain, which I really love. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you developed this sound?
As I said before, guitar for me, as Kitty mentioned earlier, guitar for me was just for me to sing over, basically. That's all I wanted. And then it was around the time I'd gone abroad. I was in Australia for a year or so. You're staying in a lot of sort of communal spaces. And at the time, less so now, but at the time I didn't want to be sort of singing and being the campfire guy that's in a hostel or something like that. It isn't my vibe. But I wanted to play guitar. Like the thought of not playing guitar it's not me. I just always want to be picking it up. So I was just like, I'll start doing this. And I started doing a lot of the picking stuff. And I was listening to a lot more music, which sort of was influencing that. And as I got older, my music was getting... soft is the wrong word, because I think there can be sort of a power in something that's very quiet and very sort of minimal. But it was leaning away from like huge sort of band emo sound. And so it all just sort of came down there. And then at the time it was like, I'm enjoying this. But now I love the guitar playing as much as the lyric writing. And if I had told myself that, 8 years ago, I would have been like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, as well? Because I guess if there's a guitar in a room and I pick it up, I always go to something kind of like that's a finger picking song, because if you were in shared rooms or accommodation, then that is quite nice, like filler sound. It's nice in the background and no one gives you too much attention if you're saying you don't want to be this campfire singer, which is like I think a lot of people shy away from, of like, I want to practice but don't look at me. And I guess that's
I think you're bearing your soul a lot more when you're singing, aren't you? I think that's part of it. And it was like I didn't think I had the confidence at that time to be sort of singing
Yeah.
in that space, whereas I could pick up a guitar and just sort of play. And so the hours started going into that. Yeah.
So touring with Benjamin Francis Leftwich must have been quite an incredible experience, I assume. What did you get from it? Like you've mentioned that you went to a wide array of venues and from punk basements to grand churches. What's some of those most memorable moments from it, or lessons that you've learned?
Lesson one is like you can't judge the gig on the venue when you arrive, for sure. You might turn up at one and it's like sometimes you're playing in a grand church, but sometimes you might be playing in like something which is like a basement somewhere. The posters are like hanging off the walls, and then you play the show and it's just every so often there's just that magic, and it's like that is, some venues just they bring that. But a lot of what I learned I learned a lot from doing that, playing every night. You learn a lot about yourself, about playing live, about sort of tour etiquette. And I was really, really lucky because I'd known Ben since, I was in Emo Bands. Like I met him at my Emo Bands show was where we had met. So I'd known him for years, and, he's just a lovely soul. Anyone that knows him knows he's a beautiful soul. And so it was just, a really wonderful experience all around. If it could have gone on for, forever, towards the end of the tour, it's like, we could just keep going. It's like, wouldn't that be amazing?
What was it like performing every night in terms of, I find, so because I don't gig as often now, I find that I really prepare for a gig, and I am very careful with my voice before the gig. And, you kind of, I have this build up to it, but playing every night, you don't have that, did you find that changed your performance style at all, or I don't know, made you change your preparation in the lead up to a gig?
As the tour went on, my voice got better, and it definitely felt, at the beginning I'd be going, do I want to like just go through this song or this, that, and the other. When you're playing it every night, as the tour went on, by the end of the tour, I felt my voice
really
felt strong, and it felt good because you're going through the motions every time.
Funny, isn't it?
And it can be really good for that. Because I'm kind of the same. Like if I've got a show and I haven't had a show for a while, I'll be just making sure I've practiced and sort of going in there like that.
And almost too much to the point where...
Yeah, you can overthink it as well.
Yeah, you overthink it.
I definitely am not as bad as I used to be. I remember, when I'd be making a mistake and I'd think, whereas now it's like, let the mistakes be, they're part of it, and they're part of like you, and that's part of like, people haven't come to see like a TV show recording. They've come to see a person who's going to do this and do that. And, you see Blink-182 live, like, Tom DeLonge is like one of the scrappiest guitarists ever, but no one cares because it's Blink-182 and it's fun, and that's part of it, So I think like that was definitely something I've cooled off on now with like the more sort of recent shows I've had. Yeah.
Lovely. Right, so important question time, and we are actually sampling the selected option already. So if your music was a flavour of tea, what would it be and why?
Okay, caveat, I haven't brought Yorkshire tea in for us to drink, which is my favourite. I felt I couldn't just bring in Yorkshire tea, so I was speaking to a friend and I was basically saying, I feel like if I was to describe sort of Wounded Bear, I think to me it feels like it's lots of different influences that I had growing up from like different areas. There's like aspects of like storytelling, aspects of like folk fingerstyle guitar. I think there's aspects of like emo in there as well, which is a very sort of emotive genre. And so I felt there's so many different aspects in. So I was saying I wanted like a tea that has a lot of different aspects in. So I was suggested Empress Grey.
Lovely.
Which is
sounds like a baddie in a film.
It does, yeah. It sounds like someone that's going to like poison an apple and steal a princess or something. And this is only my second time of drinking it. It's got bergamot in it, Earl Grey, which might be bergamot, I don't know. But they've also got like citrus and lemon and bits in it. Kitty, you're enjoying it?
I love it. I was actually just thinking, so I said when I was like, who wants a cup of tea? Who's trying the Empress Grey? And I always think Earl Grey tea looks like dishwater when you make it. But then when you drink it, you're like, wow, it's so floral and lovely. But I haven't tried Emperor's Grey with the orange and lemon in it. And it really reminds me of my mum makes an orange polenta cake that is amazing. And it reminds me of that. So next time she makes it, I'm going to buy some Emperor's Grey. And have
there we
it
go.
with it.
Lovely. So no, let's get things straight. I do really like it. However, it's not something I could drink regularly. It's a little bit too floral for me.
I'm agreed. I'm agreed
You
on that
are.
front.
I really love you've made my day with
However,
this.
I would not. This is where I disagree with you on the connotations between your music and the tea. Is I could listen to your music. So there we have it. There's some slight issues with your selection.
I mean,
of
I'm
tea.
glad it was
true.
that way round. Jeez.
Yeah. I can't listen to your music, but your tea is great. Lovely. Right, so it's about time we listen to some of your live sessions. So what are you going to be gracing us with today?
Okay, the first song I'm going to be playing is Nova Scotia, which is a song which is on my new EP and has just come out. And it's a song sort of about sort of miscommunications as much about a relationship, with the first verse being sort of in amongst the relationship and then the second verse being 5 years later and sort of looking back on it. I was really interested when writing it and sort of doing a song in which the meaning of the chorus changes because of the verse that's before it. So it's the exact same words in the chorus, but it sort of changes. And that's kind of what the song's about. It's about sort of looking back and maybe realizing the way you perceive things in that moment were actually slightly different to what it was. And this song's called Nova Scotia.
Can't wait.
She lived close enough to the airport that the engines could be heard. Late at night we'd watch 'em overhead. Planes shrunk to the size of birds. Tail lights of aircrafts would glitter in the deep black. We'd talk till the morning brought the blue. I'd ask her questions, she'd spread her answers out like map pins. Star constellations in her room, saying I don't know, Sydney or Nova Scotia, we can go anywhere tonight. If we leave right now, beneath the midnight stars of late October, I just know that we'll be fine. 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 She settled down about 5 years ago, while I was abroad sleeping around. Came back to England for the music. Thought of her when I hit the ground. Still late at night, plane lights flicker above my head as I return there in my mind, asking dumb questions like, where is it we should go? Instead of what are we trying to find? And she says, I don't know, Sydney or Nova Scotia, we can go anywhere tonight. If we leave right now, beneath the midnight stars of late October, I just know that we'll be fine. 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 Oh, I don't know Sydney or Nova Scotia. We can go anywhere tonight. If we leave right now, beneath the midnight stars of late October, I just know that we'll be fine. I just know that we'll be fine. I just know that we'll be fine. I just know that we'll be fine.
So your upcoming EP, A Few Honest Years in Paradise. Love the name, by the way. It seems to branch out a little bit more from your debut album with more kind of instrumentation and rich narratives. Can you talk about the theme you kind of explored in this project, or how does it differ from your previous work?
With my previous EP, I think there's a little bit of narrative in there, but there's also a lot of sort of postcard moments, I think, is sort of what it was. And with this one, there is a little bit of that, but I wanted a lot more sort of storytelling, sort of a bit more dense, and being able to get in a bit more in the weeds. I also think this one's a lot more sort of thematically rich. I love the first EP, but with this one I had a bit more time and spent a bit more time on it. I'm sort of creating something that has sort of deals with an issue. And what I wanted to sort of talk about with this one, which I think the sort of title sums up in a way, which is sort of looking back on all past relationships, and sort of just thinking over them and the difference in them and the similarities in them. I'd been through a breakup, and that was happening as I was creating the EP, and it sort of was the thing which just suddenly made the EP, in a way, make sense to me, I think. I think before that point, I was sort of reaching in the dark and trying to think, I've sort of got a theme, which is time and how we look at things, that I see running through these songs, which is always something I'm interested in. But it was at that moment when I suddenly thought, actually, what is interesting about these songs is a lot of them are to do with past relationships, and grouped together, it starts to show a strange sort of theme. Yeah. And I wanted to create something which was dealing with that matter, but didn't have any bitterness in it. Because that's not how I feel about any of the past relationships. Like, however it ended or this, that, and the other, you can look back and sort of find, different things in it which were nice, and the fact that you learn in these different things. And so I wanted to sort of examine that. And with Nova Scotia, you're sort of looking back at, the miscommunication between two people. And there's, 2 a.m. is a song I wrote, which was looking forward to the end of a relationship. Like, what would it be, when you're young and you think this person's too good for me, it's going to end because they're too good for me.
Yeah.
And sort of having a song which sort of captures that. And instead of having it like a breakup EP, which is all about, the break, I think what's also interesting is about, what came before the break.
Yeah, and what comes from it.
Exactly, yeah. And so that's sort of what I ended up exploring. And that's what I liked about the title, was because it was, paradise in the past is interesting, but also, a few honest years. It's not looking back, thinking, oh, that was then. It's looking back going, well, that was
then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the bittersweetness is what makes, for me anyway, art and humans and all of this songwriting and everything interesting.
Yeah. Your line in 2 a.m. in your kitchen of the, I don't know if this is the exact words, but when I'm no longer yours and I'm someone they talk about, That line was really poignant to me the first time I listened to it, and that's interesting in that there's no like you say, there's no bitterness to it, but it's a really interesting take. Like
Yeah.
I've never thought about that, but you do become that person that they might talk about. But I don't know, I found that really interesting, and I like how you've looked at it without bitterness. I think it's very different to a lot of stuff that's out at the moment.
Yeah, I think I always see it slightly differently. I don't know if that's sort of temperate. I just see everything as being very complex, and I think even in those scenarios, like, it's no one's fault that that's the way that it can end up. But
Yeah.
it just is what it is.
But,
people are
and
people,
also
you know.
some of the worst parts you learn from.
Oh,
which
100%,
is-
100%, yeah. And I think there should be that in each song should be something with something. I always think, like, you can have, if it's a sad song, to me, a sad song is much more moving when it does have a little bit of joy in there.
Yeah.
Or it has a little bit of something else in there that says something, and has a little point to make that makes you really think about it in a different way.
Yeah,
And
or
I'm
like
always
a
interested
little,
in that.
like a little glimmer of hope or something.
Yeah, I think that definitely just adds a little bit more something to it.
I agree.
In my opinion, yeah.
You mentioned earlier on about 2 a.m. in your kitchen regarding the instrumentation and how it builds and it's the layers that kind of evolve the song. How do you feel that the instrumentation throughout your EP has sort of played a part in telling those stories?
Oh, it's a really good question. Yeah, it's been massive. I had so much fun. I recorded at a studio called Crooked Room with
Love
Isaac
Crooked
McInnes.
Room.
Yeah.
Big up Crooked Room.
And Isaac has a special place in my heart. And when we came to do the EP, I'd already recorded it, but I wasn't really in the right headspace. I was coming out of COVID, and like, when you're in the studio, you want to be firing on all cylinders, and I just didn't feel that way, which was me. It wasn't the person I was recording with. And so when I came to Isaac, I was saying, look, I want to go in, but I'm not sure what it is yet. And Isaac said, look, I'll give you the time. Let's just figure it out. And it meant we could play with lots of different instruments.
Isaac is lovely to record with in that respect, that he never rushes, does
No,
he?
he doesn't,
He's so calm.
He's a very gentle, calm person. And that was what I needed in that thing. So I needed to sort of get back to, having a bit of sort of, a bit more gumption, or sort of getting back into that thing where you can make those decisions. And we got there, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And I'd recorded my first EP with Isaac, and that was very stripped back, just acoustic. So it was amazing to sort of have fun. And with 2 a.m, I did, a lot of that was done in my bedroom, just playing around with sounds and getting them in there and exploring. And by the time I brought it to Isaac, because it was one of those times where everything's just pouring out and I've got the next idea. I mean, the project file was a complete mess.
Similar to your
blessing.
English.
Yeah,
English
literally, it was
assignments.
literally my English essay. So he was like, right, we're
Crossing
going to
out.
sort this out.
Loads of muted tracks and hidden.
And I think there's like, I think is it polyrhythm or something going on in that song as well, which
Yes,
makes
there
it even
is,
harder.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, right, now we've got to figure all this stuff out. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And I'd love sort of doing arranging and stuff. And for one of the songs which will be coming out soon, When Your Love Is Gone, I wrote a string section for that, which is just so much fun, and going in there and then having people in the studio and hearing real strings sort of do it. That's
Exciting.
yeah.
So as you continue to grow and evolve as an artist, what are some of the goals that you've got coming forward for Wounded Bear? Is there any new directions or collaborations that you're excited to explore?
I think what I want to do next is not have a pause between this EP and the next one.
A 6-year pause.
Yeah, 6-year pause was too much. I feel really good creatively, writing a lot, and my main thing is just to be getting and wanting to put more and more music out now. I've got quite a few songs, and I've got a few songs in different areas, so sort of leaning towards creating the next project now, and there's maybe some folkier vibes here, some stuff which is a little bit more in a different direction, and they kind of sort of naturally find their way into different projects, so it's now like, well, I haven't decided which route I'm going to go down. I'm sort of leaning towards a more acoustic-y vibe for the next one. But just to keep writing, that's the bit I like best. Like, if I can just keep doing that, I'm good, and whatever comes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Nice. Sounds like you found your rhythm a little bit with it.
Yeah, I think so. And it's been really sort of cathartic putting out songs again and having them out there. And now I'm just like, I want to be putting out the next one. I think that's the plan.
So, your next live session.
Yep.
What have you got for us?
The next song I'm going to play is Drunk on Love. Drunk on Love is a song from the EP, which is also very narrative driven. It's a song that was written about a kind of chaotic relationship that I was at while at uni. But it sort of looks back on it with a fondness. And sort of amongst all this, like, the opening line is, I met you in a bar with waitresses dressed like cheerleaders.
I love that
yeah.
line. I really, really love it.
Which is a true story.
What's the bar?
It was called Players, but I think it's gone now.
Amazing name.
We had a show on tour that was in Sheffield, and I think actually it might still be there, but people aren't dressed as. I think we're past that period in time now where they have bar waitresses dressed as cheerleaders. But I love that line because it says a lot about. I think even in those moments which aren't traditionally romantic are like kind of gross. Like that bar is like literally, it's not the nicest of bars. No slagging off. I had a lot of fun nights when I was at uni.
You've named it now.
I know, I'm going to be in trouble. But it's not somewhere you'd see as like a romantic spot, and I don't think they sell themselves as a romantic spot. It's more of like a party place.
Right.
But I think when you find those little bits of romance in those places, I think that's when it's really interesting and sort of unique to me. And I think that amongst all of like the youthful ways of, trying to get through a relationship without having the proper tools, because you're still a bit too young. There's a line in it about crying and putting on someone's favorite movie. And that's a very like 18-year-old way of like trying to solve a problem because you don't quite know how to do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, looking back, it's kind of tender. It's like someone doing their best in that scenario. And that's kind of what I want this song to be. It's sort of a song in all the chaos, but there's a little bit of, softness in there as well.
Yeah, I guess similar to what you were saying before of a sad song with a little glimmer of
Yeah,
hope.
yeah.
A chaotic song with a little bit of romance and tenderness.
Perfect. Thank you.
I met you in a bar where the waitresses dressed like cheerleaders. You were out of my league, I knew you were. But I was just drunk enough to be brave that night, and just sober enough to be drunk on love. You had stuff going on you wouldn't talk about. To do with your family, I could tell it was tough. You'd cry sometimes, not put your favorite movie on, as we drank our wine out of coffee cups. Drunk, 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 drunk on love. Your flatmate's got an important exam in the morning, so we're sneaking into your flat all hush hush. Tiptoeing through the darkness, I can smell your perfume. In the warmth of your room, I can feel your touch. Ooh. Drunk on love. Couple bottles of wine would get us in the mood to drink. No, we never could tell when enough was enough. I guess I know now when I've had my fill of it. I never did learn that though with us. Time is a funny way of leaving you behind before you notice what's been lost. Now I drink memories part from another time, hung over on you, drunk on us.
Well, that kind of comes to the end section of the podcast. So a new thing that we've started doing is just throwing in a couple of quick fire questions.
Okay,
So quick fire.
let's do it.
Not that I think you've rambled by any means, but
I think this is
I've
going
got
to be
like 4 questions here for you.
I'm a good talker, so this is going to be my hardest,
Yeah.
the hardest section for me, I think.
So,
Okay.
what is one book or album that you could listen to on repeat or read, I suppose, for the next 2 months, like you did as a kid?
Oh, that's so good. Oh no. Okay, I'm going to be quick. Book, I'm going to go with. This is kind of like dark academia lit, but Brothers Karamazov Dostoevsky, because it's massive, and it has all of life in it. All of life is in that
Because
book.
it's massive.
Yeah, if I'm going to be stuck with, if I had to be stuck with one book, I think it'd be that one, because you could read it 100 times, and one chapter has got enough information, like more than most novels, I think, in it. There's a lot of depth to that, so I think it'd be that. That's my
Nice.
favourite. Yeah.
What is your go-to comfort food after a long day of recording or performing?
That is very good. I'm going to go with Indian.
That's
Indian.
what we did yesterday.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
We had a long day recording yesterday, and I said to Adam, he was like, "Oh, what do you fancy doing for food?" And I was like, I could really eat a curry. It is
Wonderful.
good. It's never not good, is
All
it?
the flavours, all the textures, just absolutely wonderful.
Although you are all a bit smelly and garlicky in the studio the next
That's
day.
true.
If
I actually, on tour, we were in a hotel room and we went back, and it was the tour manager's hotel room. We all had the Indian meal in because the restaurant wasn't open in the hotel. So he basically was like, for the rest of the night lying in bed, like literally just
Basking in the ambience.
Literally.
So, if Wounded Bear was an animal other
Okay.
than a bear, what would
Yes.
it be?
A dog.
A dog.
It'd be a dog. Yeah.
oh, what dog?
Labrador.
No,
It's been
I
Labrador.
saw that. I could see
I
it.
know, I
could
know.
see it, yeah.
Yeah.
Wounded the
100%.
wounded
wounded
Labrador.
It doesn't quite work, does it? Doesn't have quite the same ring.
If you could tour with any artist, dead or alive, who would it be?
Okay. And it's like a wish. I can make the wish, and it's that artist.
Granted, I will grant it for you.
It
Right
would
here,
be,
right now.
Okay.
It's a one-off.
If this doesn't come true, I'm going to be absolutely raging. So.
I'm not a genie.
It would be. It'd probably be Conor Oberst, I think, actually.
You
Yeah.
really thought about that.
I
didn't
did.
you?
There was a lot. There was a lot on there. I mean, but Conor Oberst would be amazing. He was very sort of important for me in sort of. It was the first time I'd heard someone that was sort of doing emo-esque stuff, and all he was on was a guitar.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
I've seen someone had posted a video on their MySpace page of it, and I was like, "Who is this?" And I just started watching it.
That's one for the
And
kids there.
Yeah, literally. But I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen it, and it was so like everything stripped back. It was
Yeah.
so like honest, and had the same thing that emo has, which is like emotion should be part of it. It's not.
Yeah.
No one's too cool to be emotive, and like that's very much like the music I generally like is quite sincere in that
Yeah,
way. And that was the first sort of ding of like, like I've been writing all these songs on acoustic guitar that actually I could actually play these songs and sing them to people.
And I guess no matter how punk or emo you are, that's still an underlying thing,
100%.
and that the lyrics
yeah.
are always quite vulnerable, aren't they?
I think so, yeah. And that's always more interesting to me. I think that's, to me, it always felt like very brave and like a bit more sort of, that to me is very rock and roll. It's like,
Yes,
you are
I
literally just
agree.
like bare. There's no like, oh, I'm a bit too cool to be saying what I'm, it's like you're literally just saying. And to me, that was always really powerful. And also with Conor Oberst as well, probably why he was such a good sort of gateway into a lot of folk and acoustic music for me, was that he was an acoustic player that was amongst the scene of alternative punk musicians, you know. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of that with like the instrumentation and stuff around his music, which would have like overdriven stuff, like stuff which was like raw and like scrappy guitar playing, which is very much taken from that scene, and not him thinking, I'm going to add this in my music. He would just, that's what music was to him, but he was doing it on an acoustic guitar, you know.
Yeah.
And so there is like a parallel there where I came from like a much more punk emo orientated scene and play acoustic music. So I think that'd be really amazing.
Nice. I like that answer.
Yeah.
Very good, quick fire answer.
Only
I did elaborate.
yes.
I did elaborate on the question.
Yes. Well, it's been really great having you on. How can people find your music, your content? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your little bit of merch on the side as well?
Oh yeah, please
yes.
tell us. I love it.
I brought some little merch for the team here. I made some sort of prints for 2 a.m. I think there's only like 3 left now. The rest have been sold or gifted. There was like, I made a bunch, one for each lyric line in 2 a.m. And I'm hopefully going to do some more like limited edition stuff like that. I like when it's sort of human made. You know, there might be a little print from like my inky finger on it. Or
Yeah,
something,
well,
you know.
because you said that when I got mine, you said, "Oh, sorry if you got the dodgy one that's missing," and then you can swap it for another one. And I looked through the others and I was like, I kind of like mine.
I want the
More
dodgy
unique.
one.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I liked about it. So yeah, so there's these, and I've got my EP which is coming out, a few honest years in Paradise, and you can find me, you know, streaming platforms, Instagram, and all of those places. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, that wraps up another episode of Indie Tea Talk. Big thank you to Josh from
Thank you for
Wounded
having
Bear.
me. Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you in today, and making the journey over to us.
Yeah, long way.
Yeah.
After an intense covers gig last night.
Please remember to find all of Josh's stuff, to follow him on Instagram and all the rest of the button clicking that we always bang on about. And obviously, give us a follow and a subscribe too. That'd be great. And we'll see you again next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.